the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
Unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. in the UK. It's 7 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. I'm Bev Turner, and this is The Late Show Live. On The Late Show Live.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that.
Tonight, Trump and the UK pretty much at war. First, there was the US president's claim that Sadiq Khan wants Sharia law in London. And then there was this.
Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately.
Immigration and net zero are destroying the UK, says the president. That was the clear message from him at the UN conference in front of world leaders. Reacting to all of that tonight.
If you believe in humanity, if you want to save those children, those young women, every nation of the world should stand up and secure their borders.
Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Terrorism Expert Seb Gorka. He is smashing the gangs here, unlike Sir Keir Starmer. More on that later. Back, though, in the UK.
Don't pay any attention whatsoever to what Donald Trump says about medicine.
Labour has hit back at the American president on the claims that link paracetamol with autism. That cosy state visit last week seems like it's in the far distant past, doesn't it? Meanwhile,
where gun laws are rolled back, so schools have to teach our children what to do in case of a mass shooting. Trump's America, don't let it become Farage's Britain.
Farage's Britain apparently will lead to school shootings like those in the US. Is that really what the leader of the Liberal Democrats claimed this evening? Yes, he did. And also, YouTubers uncancelled. GB News' legend Neil Oliver is going to join me on that issue. I can see my panel nodding their approval already.
How are you? Guess what?
That is a delicious image of French President Emmanuel Macron left red-faced by Donald Trump. Find out why. And breaking this evening, the suspect in the Trump assassination attempt has been found guilty, but you won't believe what he did in court. We'll bring you all the details on that. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live, and your night has just got started. Well, tonight the special relationship looks like it's heading for a messy divorce.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that.
That was Donald Trump going off script, firing a number of warnings at the UK. The most outrageous, perhaps, was that London Mayor Sadiq Khan is asking for Sharia law in the capital, or at least it's what he wants. This evening, the mayor has hit back, saying he won't dignify his appalling and bigoted comments with a response, which is sort of a response. The comments were made at today's United Nations General Assembly in his home city of New York. The president didn't get off to a great start. He got stuck on an escalator. Just have a look at this. He gets on the escalator with his wife and his entourage, and then it stops. Then, next thing, he has to walk up the escalator. Next, his teleprompter. Also, the auto cue, that malfunctioned as well.
And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you, nevertheless. Whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
Despite those that confident smile, it seems these two incidents had slightly angered the president. He took aim at some of the UK government's fundamental issues, and he said this about immigration.
When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did, they repaid kindness with crime, it's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
And then he went for net zero.
And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail.
But it's not like he hadn't warned Sir Keir Starmer.
And I hope the Prime Minister is listening, because I told it to him 3 days in a row. That's all he heard. North Sea oil, North Sea, because I want to see them do well. I want to stop seeing them ruining that beautiful Scottish and English countryside with windmills and massive solar panels that go 7 miles by 7 miles, taking away farmland.
Well, the comments came after this.
And, you know, the way I look at it, don't take it. Don't take it. There's no downside in not taking it.
That's right. American research, well funded by this government, says that Tylenol, or paracetamol as we would call it, taken during pregnancy might be linked to autism. Well, Health Secretary Wes Streeting came out swinging on it this morning.
Don't pay any attention whatsoever to what Donald Trump says about medicine. There is no evidence to link the use of paracetamol by pregnant women to autism in their children. None. In fact, a major study was done back in 2024 in Sweden involving 2.4 million children, and it did not uphold those claims.
Well, that state visit seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? Has the special relationship? Is it just going through a rough patch, or are the UK and the US about to fall out monumentally? Let me know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Lot to get through this evening, but earlier tonight I spoke to Deputy Assistant to President Trump, Seb Gorka. Seb Gorka, the President says that migration is destroying Europe. What does he mean by that?
Well, first things first, congratulations, Bev, the whole GB News team, Angelos, Mick, and everyone else. So excited to have you here at the center of the universe in Washington, D.C. What does he mean? Look, I don't want to get all professorial about it, but the whole speech, which was just a tour de force, is really about the revitalization, the rebirth of the Westphalian model of nation states. The president believes that nations must have borders, nations must exercise sovereignty sovereignty over their territory. And what he means is, you're not a country. You don't have an identity if you don't control your borders and who comes into your countries. It's just the revenge of common sense, because everyone who lives in the real world knows that everything he said today is true, especially that.
But the UN, there'll be a lot of people in that room today who are very keen on the idea of a sort of global governance without the individual nation states. So how must that have gone down in the room today to hear that excoriating attack on the principles by which most of those people live by?
You want me to try and pretend to be one of those self-hating, loathsome globalists? That's not what I'm good at. I serve the most consequential president of the modern age. I've done it before. I'm doing it again. God has blessed me with this opportunity. But at the end of the day, it's very simple. I realized this when I had my own nationally syndicated TV show here in America a few years ago. We live in such a peculiar age, Bev, when you look at the quote-unquote elites of various parts of Western Europe or even America under Obama, under Biden, the somnambulant quote-unquote president. These are people who are all connected by one thing. They detest their own countries. I mean, think about what Obama said 4 days before he was sworn in as president. He said, we are 4 days away from fundamentally changing America. You don't fundamentally change that which you love. If I told my wife tonight, you know what, I love you, Katie, but I want to fundamentally change you, I wouldn't be sleeping on the couch. I'd be in the doghouse for the rest of the night. These people, through some kind of perverse concatenation of self-hatred, reflect that self-hatred onto their own country. So that's who he was talking to in that huge congregation inside the UN General Assembly.
Let me ask you about your role here in counter-terrorism now for this government. We've seen these incredible pictures of you blowing boats out of the water. I think so far there have been confirmed 14 people killed, Venezuelan drug gangs. Just explain to us the legislative framework in which you as a government are allowed to take out criminals in that manner without a trial, because to some it does look pretty shocking.
Well, these are people who are murdering Americans by the hundreds of thousands. So it's done quite simply. In the 4 years of the Biden administration, more people were killed every year thanks to fentanyl and other illicit drugs than in 75 years of combat by U.S. forces. If you add up all the killed in action wearing the uniform of the United States, from Vietnam to Korea to Gulf War to to the Afghan conflict, 103,000 Americans were killed in uniform in 70 years. Under Biden's open border policies, the cartels would kill more than 110,000 people every year. So as a result, the cartels clearly declared war on us, and the president has declared war on them with utter justice and righteousness. What is he doing? He's using the Foreign Terrorist Organization legislation to designate those cartels and those gangs as foreign terrorist organizations against which we can use deadly force.
You're smashing your gangs under your very distinctive MO. How should the British government smash the gangs which are people trafficking as wannabe Brits across the ocean, across the channel to come and live in the UK? What should we do, Seb Gorka?
I think you have to go back and watch the president's speech from the UN today. I watched it live with my counterterrorism team, or just print it off and read it. Maybe that's even better. When the president talks about the lives that we have saved by closing the border, the women, the young girls who now will not be trafficked into sex slavery. Those young girls who won't be raped by the coyotes who are smuggling them across the southern border. If you believe in humanity, if you want to save those children, those young women, every nation of the world should stand up and secure their borders because by doing so, you make the human trafficking of the cartels impossible. So if you want to save innocent women, innocent girls, then just secure your borders, whichever government you are.
We're doing the polar opposite, obviously, in terms of our sea border. And of course, the excuses that are used are that we are part of the Human Rights Convention, that we don't have a right to turn these boats back. We have charities on the beach ready to welcome people and hand them clothes and money and mobile phones, and we give them a hotel. And when you sit here as part of this administration, does any of that make any sense to you? Because it is so different to what's happening here in America.
Look, that doesn't make any sense to the, 17.4 million Brits who voted for national sovereignty in the greatest show of volition by the electorate of the United Kingdom when they voted Brexit to leave the EU. That's the same, that's cut from the same cloth. It's about national sovereignty. It's about borders. If you believe in doing what is right for humanity, then you really should follow the model of the president. Just think about what he mentioned in his speech today. Almost 2 million illegals have been removed from this country or self-deported because they're petrified of our borders are. Tom Homan of the Homeland Security Advisor, Stephen Miller, or the Secretary of Homeland Security, Governor Noam. That's how you save a nation. Look, I grew up in the UK. I was the child of refugees, but real refugees, people who would have been killed if they went back to their nation of birth, not economic refugees. And one last thing, and I don't want to get wonky here or like nerdy, but you can't claim asylum in a country that is far away from the country you left. International law is clear. Once you escape the nation of your birth that is persecuting you, whether it's a communist dictatorship, a fascist regime run by the cartels, you are required by international law to apply for asylum in the first safe country you arrive in. You can't travel the globe from Africa through Afghanistan, through Western Europe, through Turkey, into France, across the Channel into the UK, and then request asylum, because then we know it's not about politics, it's not about persecution, it's about the welfare state. And as you said, getting that free mobile phone and that cushy little hotel in Brighton, that's not being a refugee. That's being an illegal immigrant who's playing the system. Here in the US, we've stopped it. Every other country that believes in national sovereignty should stop it too.
Well, Seb Gorka, what starts as an interview ends as a rallying cry, as usual with you. Thank you so much for giving us your time here this evening on The Late Show Live, and I will catch up with you very soon.
I look forward to seeing you in studio, and welcome again to the United States, and congratulations to GB News.
So that was Deputy Assistant to President Trump, Sebastian Gorka there. I am joined in the studio by political commentator Stephen Kent and Democrat strategist Malbert Smith. Thank you both for joining me. Part of the joy of this job is introducing our audience at home to these articulate, brilliant speakers, these political experts here in America. But in the absence of any of those, we got you two.
Yeah. The millennial staffers are the ones truly running DC right now.
You're not kidding.
None of the office holders.
Absolutely. Right, so where should we start, guys? Let's talk about Trump's speech today in New York, because it was something else, wasn't it, Stephen? The teleprompter broke and he just confidently said, well, never mind, I'll just talk from the heart and tell you what I think. And boy, did he. What stood out for you?
Well, I'm going to put broke in air quotes. I think it might have been planned to happen, but that's when Donald Trump is really at his best, when he's telling people what he actually thinks at any given time. I mean, and the things that jumped out to me right off the bat were the 2 points of immigration and energy. And both of those things point to predominantly a UK that has really lost its sense of confidence and understanding of what they're trying to protect. The idea that Britain should be British and that when you go to London, it should feel like the storybooks and the history books that you were promised is not a controversial idea. You're not going to London to visit Pakistan or India. And that is not anything that any British voter would actually object to. They want to live in their own country. And he points that out, that every country should be distinct, have their own vibe, their own feeling. And that's why people come to our countries, to be part of it. But right now, Britain's not very British.
Mally, can you argue with that?
Well, look, it's not surprising that he wants to talk about immigration. He believes it's one of his strongest issues, and it was one of the issues he was able to focus on, and it helped him win the election. It's interesting, though, he doesn't want to talk about how his immigration record and his ICE agents are so out of control in the United States. We have actually seen tourism to the United States drop. The World Travel and Tourism Council estimates that we are the only country out of the 184 they've looked at that is going to have less visitors than the year before.
But is
We're
that
going to
because,
spend
let me
less
tell you
money.
why that is. That's because the rest of the world has got no money.
Well,
Europe,
there's
we've
also,
got no
by the
money.
way,
We can't afford
there's a
to come on holiday
remarkable
to
report
America.
out just earlier today about how New York City's Broadway is out currently on life support. They can barely keep the theater alive. And the report is actually able to show how there are no hotel vacancies for people to even come into the biggest city, the best city in America, to see a stage show. Why? Because all the hotels have been filled by New York City's government with illegal immigrants from out of the country. Immigration is a trade-off choice. You give up good things for your people and people who want to come travel for people who just showed up and claim asylum, like Zeb Gorka said.
But on the immigration front, I completely agree. We need to get rid of folks who are in this country illegally, especially violent criminals. Trump in his campaign said he wanted to focus on violent criminals, but according to ICE's own data, the majority of folks they arrest do not have a criminal record. And then the vast majority don't have a violent criminal record. And it's especially ironic that they are focusing on violent criminals, or say they are focusing on violent criminals, when their own border czar, Tom Homan, was investigated for accepting a $50,000 bag of cash for a bag,
Before he had his position, his
before
official
he had his
position in government,
official
though.
position, but it was to steer contracts to folks who gave him money once he got his
And
position.
there's no evidence that
and
he's
it was
done
dropped. It is on camera, it is on video, and the Trump DOJ dropped it after Trump was elected.
And this here is a deflection away from the issue of what Americans voted for in the 2024 election and put down Kamala Harris and the rest of her political career, is because they want to live in a country, and a country has borders. Never was controversial, but somehow Democrats forgot about that. And you can deflect to Tom Homan. I'm sure he's not an angel. I would never say
I didn't deflect. I didn't completely deflect.
That was
Tom Homan.
absolutely a deflection away from the issue of protecting
It's
this country.
astounding
Just
that
in case
such
people
level
don't-
of corruption
Just in case people
is
don't know, in
being
the
defended.
UK, though, Tom Homan is basically the migration, the border czar, is how he's the guy that is credited with having stopped that. And do you know what? There'll be people in this country who'll say, I don't care if somebody gave him $50,000 before he was in that job, because he's done what we wanted him to do.
I mean, that's a stunning way to think about corruption. And let me tell you, if anything like that happened under the Biden administration.
You mean like Hunter Biden?
Hunter Biden was not in the Biden administration. He didn't.
Neither
work
was
in the
Tom
government.
Homan when that allegation was made.
You should maybe consider reading some of the tell-all books which indicate that Hunter Biden was, in fact, in the Oval Office helping to steer policy, despite not being part of the administration. I get your point.
This is especially rich coming from folks who want to defend the Trump administration. President Trump has made more money as president than he has ever made during his entire real estate career.
Could we agree at the least? And I'm going to give.
Is that not true?
No. Could we agree at the
true?
least that they probably shouldn't be making Pokemon videos about rounding up people?
But that's
pretty egregious.
But the cruelty is the point.
I would like a serious government that does serious things and doesn't make a show of it. I'll give you that.
We do have a serious issue of corruption.
Let's talk about this serious issue, this allegation that Trump said today. And in fact, our inbox, your messages are coming in. Good evening. It's so nice to be back with you. Saying that actually Trump didn't expressly say that Sadiq Khan wants Sharia law in the UK. He sort of suggested they would like it, and it's suggesting that maybe there are Muslim communities in the UK that would like Sharia law. Was that, should we have a quick look? Because we know what he thinks about Sadiq Khan anyway. Let's have a quick look. When I had a chat to Trump on Air Force One the other day, this is what he told me about Sadiq Khan.
Events in England, a state visit, spectacular. Right. And yet the Mayor of London can't be there.
I didn't want him there. I asked that he not be there. I don't want them. I think the Mayor of London, Khan, is among the worst mayors in the world. And we have some bad ones. If you look at Chicago, but I think he's the equivalent of the mayor of Chicago. I think he's done a terrible job. Crime in London is through the roof. The mayor of London, Mayor Khan, has done a terrible job. And on immigration, he's a disaster. Now, I asked that he not be there. He wanted to be there, as I understand. I didn't want him. I've not liked him for a long time. I just think, you know, I have a certain pride in London and UK. My mother was born in Scotland, as you know. And when I see Mayor Khan do a bad job, the stabbings and the dirt and the filth, it's not the same. No, I didn't want him there.
I mean, maybe it's wrong of me, but I never tire of him saying mean things about Sadiq Khan, because as someone who lives in London, believe me, it is in a diabolical state at the moment. How does it make you feel when you hear Donald Trump criticising an influential, authoritative figure in the UK in that way, Mali, as a Democrat?
Well, I would say this. It's not surprising, because that's how he talks, period. It's how he talks to leaders in the U.S. It's how he talks to leaders abroad. I did think it's funny that he said that Sharia law was going to be implemented in London. It reminded me of how in the campaign he said in small towns across America, cats and dogs were being eaten. I think it's a little hyperbolic, but it's not surprising that that's the kind of language you'd use.
Well, you know, he's pointing to a reality, and GB News has covered this out of Dearborn, Michigan, which is that immigration changes communities. It changes entire countries. I don't think that the UK is going to implement Sharia law, but the point generally stands that you bring in people who have certain value systems. If we were to just accept British folks and just a ton of Brits into the United States, we would have a culture that steers away from unfettered free speech and the Second Amendment. I mean, that is what we would get if we just brought in Brits.
You'd all be drinking tea and reading the newspapers.
No more coffee and sugar.
Walking around
no
in bowler hats.
Spicy.
No, I mean, but there is a serious point in there, isn't it? What is a country's identity? Is it the geography, or is it the people in that country? And actually, if you change too many of the people, does it still remain the same country?
Well, and I think too, in President Trump and President Obama, you see kind of this crystallization of different views of thoughts there. You have President Trump, especially voiced by his Vice President J.D. Vance, who tries to intellectualize everything he does, have this blood and soil nationalism, talking about how the country is a place, it's a physical place. While you have Obama, that talked about, you know, the country is an ideal, it's idealism, it's your values, and if you accept those values, you can become a U.S. citizen.
You don't need borders for that?
I think you need borders, but I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay. Right, thank you, gentlemen. Stephen and Mali, don't go anywhere. Now, moving on, failed 2024 presidential candidate Kamala Harris is out and about promoting a new book. But she faced criticism for saying that she couldn't have had a gay man as her running mate in the election. We're going to be looking at that. But first,
as you know, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman. And to say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay, it's hard to hear. No.
For energy security, for good jobs, for lower bills, and indeed to tackle the climate crisis.
in another break with Britain, President Trump warns that net zero is destroying the UK. And we've just seen what Ed Miliband thinks about that. I'll be telling my guests exactly who that is and why he was wearing that bright orange tabard. That's just what our MPs do. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner. Now, remember this from last year.
The work of change has begun. The patient, calm, determined era of politics as service has begun.
So, in another break with Britain, President Trump has warned that the US is going to basically just get rid of net zero, isn't he, gentlemen? So that was Keir Starmer proudly announcing the fact that he is investing in renewables. So let's have a look what Trump said today.
The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, and they're heading down a path of total destruction. You know, the carbon footprint was a big, big thing.
So will Labour and the other world leaders take notice of Donald Trump's warning or continue its green energy crusade? Let's talk to my panel. Political commentator Stephen Kent and Democrat strategist Malbert Smith are still with me. Malbert, let me come to you first. Sure. Are you an advocate of green policy, get rid of carbon, move to renewables?
Yes, so I worked in the Biden administration, and I think we did great work investing in the jobs of the future. The Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure bill, even the CHIPS and Science Act all made sure that we were investing in advanced manufacturing and then clean energy jobs. Trump, on the other hand, his big, beautiful bill, his big, ugly bill, is removing those tax credits. And removing those tax credits are going to lead to higher energy costs for Americans. Under his presidency, electricity costs have already gone up 10% for the American household.
It's pretty rich to hear someone from the Biden administration talk about increases in energy costs. And I think to the point of the UK, you know, we need an energy abundance agenda. There's a lot of talk in the US right now about an abundance approach where we need wind, we need a lot of gas, we need solar, we need a little bit of everything. But right now, the left in both the UK and the US have made a decision that this vision of net zero, which is somewhat anti-human, because if you really want that, you just would have no human beings, that is more important than the comfort of consumers in their homes. The UK has dropped their energy consumption, but they have also dropped their energy usage. I've been to the UK. I would like some air conditioning, and I bet some of y'all would too.
Well, listen, we've dropped our energy consumption because the prices are extortionate again. I mean,
yeah, but it's better
than your approach.
It's better than America. The IEA estimates that over the next year, Europe's energy prices are going to stay level. But in America, they're going to go up 3 to 4% because of Trump's policies rolling back the investments in green energy. The Biden administration had an all-of-the-above energy policy. We had the highest U.S. oil output that we've ever had, but we also invested in green energy and green technology. And because of Trump's big, ugly bill, we are going to have less jobs. That's confirmed by the Congressional Budget Office. We are going to have higher energy costs, and that is what Trump ran on. He said we were going to have a better economy and lower costs, and his policies are making and doing the exact opposite.
But underpinning all of this, though, is this idea that you were going to save the planet.
I mean, I wasn't.
And you are going to destroy the planet.
And you'll notice that they don't really talk about this anymore.
Correct.
This whole idea that we were going to be dead in just a couple of years and that the world was doomed, the Democrats stopped talking about it because the apocalypse wasn't real. I'm told a lot of people today on the internet are talking about the rapture was supposed to happen, some sort of TikTok craze. Well, I was also told the world was going to be over.
Well, the rapture folks, from what I've seen on TikTok, seem to be on your side. They seem to be a little bit more on the religious fundamentalist side.
Which is exactly the religious fundamentalist energy that the left brings to the climate issue. It is a borderline religiosity about, we need to cleanse the earth of human beings that bring wretchedness and dirt and emissions.
We didn't eliminate human beings. What we did is we created green energy jobs here in America that we are losing because Trump's one big ugly bill is cutting those investments. These investments were so popular, Republicans took credit for them, specifically the Inflation Reduction Act's investments, even though they voted against the bill. And they were so popular that some of the provisions, not all of them, but some of the provisions were, stayed and weren't completely axed because they know it's good for their constituents and it's good for America.
But Trump's logic is that you've got this liquid gold in the ground. This is the drill, baby, drill.
Sure.
And if you can access that, then you can power human beings into the future and you reduce the cost of their energy bills.
Energy is how we can actually connect the West again, the EU to the UK to the US. We've got to be united against some serious threats that are raising themselves abroad, whether it be Russia and China, what have you. Like, we actually have to unite and support one another, and for some reason the EU is still addicted to oil from our adversaries while feigning to be against them. We've got to come together, build stuff again, support each other on free speech and energy. That's going to make us strong so that we can face our opponents in the future.
Let's just talk about Trump's obsession as well with what he calls windmills, what we would think of as wind turbines. I mean, every time that I've spoken to him, he wants to talk about windmills.
He
and
really
I think
hates them.
He really hates them. And he's got a really good point because
that it kills the birds.
And they do kill birds.
It upsets the whales.
They
by the
really
way.
kill birds. Like, the idea that they are a benevolent factor in terms of the nature and the wildlife is just nonsense.
So let's take a step back. I would say first, when it comes to energy investments, I'm much more interested in solar and geothermal than wind. But I do think wind can play a part.
But you think dead birds
so is the
are
Trump
funny?
administration.
I think
his obsession with the dead birds and the windmills is funny. But the reason he hates windmills is they put windmills in front of his Scotland property. He has no overarching theory on energy other than, I would say, probably drill, baby, drill. But he doesn't like them because it, hurt his golf course.
I'm with him on this. Like, I really do think that wind energy needs to be a part of how we think about energy production, particularly on the East Coast of the United States. And taking away those resources, those credits, isn't good. We need to have an all of the above strategy.
I have to say, I share some of the president's concerns about windmills. I worry about those birds. Birds matter. Bird lives matter, Mally. And I think it's funny that they do. And also it's about what you do with these wind turbines when they no longer work, because they only have a limited life expectancy.
Valid.
And they have a built-in obsolescence. And then what do you do with them? You've got to bury them under the ground and they don't recycle.
That's a good question.
We're going to innovate our way out of this. Batteries are the future.
Okay, right. Thank you, gentlemen. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I'm sorry, I'm the president. I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now. There's a border tape coming right now. I'm sorry. If you don't see it, let me post.
My favourite video of the day, this. Find out why French President Emmanuel Macron had a standoff with New York City police and why Donald Trump was to blame. But before that, I'll be taking you through the leading stories on both sides of the Atlantic. because the newspapers, I'm just telling these two millennials on my left and right what a newspaper is. Yep, that's it. It's something that gets printed, it comes out, it dictates the news agenda. We're going to be looking at them from both sides of the pond. Don't go anywhere, this is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then. Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
I know how he feels. Donald Trump was subject to a series of hilarious failures at the UN General Assembly today, including a broken escalator and faulty tech. We'll bring you the full footage this evening, plus plenty more reaction from his scathing speech coming up shortly. Now, where are we going to go? Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages. The Telegraph this evening is saying that Trump says that the West is going to hell over migration, and a beautiful picture of the Princess of Wales looking absolutely radiant, Catherine, there. The Times is leading on shoot down Russian jets in NATO's sky. Now that is, of course, again from Donald Trump's speech today in New York at the UN General Assembly. He really is the gift that keeps on giving to the media, isn't he? There's so many lines. It's interesting to see which papers have gone with which. The Daily Mail has gone with actually this lead story. This is about Keir Starmer, who is clearly on the ropes over in the UK. His email damns Starmer's top aide in £740,000 at donations row. This is about Morgan McSweeney and what happened to £740,000 that was spent getting Starmer into number 10. Leading the Washington Post here in DC, they are saying that Ukraine is poised to defeat Russia with NATO support, again quoting Donald Trump from his speech in New York City. And leading the New York Post, turning points. Charlie Kirk's words are being distorted and weaponized against him. The Democrat there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC as she's known here, really the story of Charlie Kirk is not going away here in America at the moment, and his charity being called, his organisation being called Turning Point, has become quite prophetic, hasn't it? Let me know your thoughts on those front pages. gbnews.com/YourSay. I've been reading your messages. In fact, one of you said, where is the GB News mug? So I have taken my little white cup, these very American coffee cups, and I've written GB News on it. But it's a very, very good point. I don't think you can see it because the light is quite bright. But thank you for pointing that out. I'll get some sent over from London. Keep your messages coming. Right, let's talk to the Spectator's Angus Colwell now down in London. Good evening, Angus. Thank you so much for joining us. So this Donald Trump speech at the UN General Assembly, it's just given headlines to all the papers, as it does. It's interesting to see who has gone with what. Let's talk about the Telegraph then. They have led with Trump saying that the West is going to hell over migration. How has that gone down there in the UK?
I mean, it's gone down with a bang. It covers most of the front pages, as you say, apart from the Mail. I think the fascinating thing is that speech was really split into two separate parts about Europe. One part on migration, one part on energy policy. Now, it sort of follows up from J.D. Vance's speech in Munich in February, where Vance told European countries that they had a free speech crisis. Trump is now gone for the migration and the energy policy angles. He says he can't understand why Britain's energy prices are 4 times the US's. He can't understand why Britain has the North Sea right next to it and doesn't want to drill, baby, drill, as he would say. And he has a particular gripe with Sadiq Khan that goes back for many years. He obviously said that Sadiq Khan wants to institute Sharia law. That's not a take that's been levelled at Khan in Britain, but it just goes to show the level of animosity between the two men.
And do you have any worry, Angus, I do, that actually this relationship between the UK and the US is only really based on the fact that Donald Trump feels such an affinity to our country? He repeatedly points out that his mother was born in Scotland. Without that, and without him in the White House, I genuinely would worry about our role in relation to America.
Well, I think Trump and Vance see Britain as the Athens to America's Rome. They really care about it. J.D. Vance chose to have his holiday, his summer holiday in Britain in the Cotswolds. Trump's mother, we know her ancestry. He's also got his golf course up in Scotland. The special relationship has survived blips before. There wasn't a great relationship between Joe Biden and Boris Johnson, so you'd hope that the British diplomatic service was able to protect it. But you know, the Republicans could be treating Britain more harshly, but Britain got quite a good carve-out on the tariffs, got tariffs down to half the level of what the EU did. So I think Britain, despite its government in Keir Starmer's Labour Party not being particularly ideological bedfellows with Trump's America, can count itself lucky in many ways that the White House does seem to genuinely have very strong feelings of passion, very strong affection for Britain. And if they didn't have that, it could be a lot worse.
OK. Thank you, Angus. Angus Caldwell there from The Spectator. Right, let's look at these papers with you two here in the studio, Mally and Stephen. Should we talk about the New York Post and the Charlie Kirk story? When they say that his words are being distorted and weaponised against him, it is frustrating. As somebody that I really admired Charlie Kirk, not least the fact that he loved these debates with people that he didn't agree with. There is so much online now that is taking the things that he said and distorting them and bastardizing them into something that bears no resemblance to what he actually meant. Malbert?
So I would say there's a line between some crazy folks on the left who've celebrated his murder, right? That is despicable and gross. And then there is the folks on the right who are essentially deifying him. And I think it's possible for Americans, especially like myself, who disagree with a lot of what Charlie Kirk said, to respect his life, his legacy, and also, you know, let folks who really believed in him have their space to mourn.
And that's just been really hard for members of Congress on the Democrat side to actually just do. Politico had a piece this morning that was asking the question, why can't Democrats get their message right on Charlie Kirk? And it is because they do offer their contingency on whether or not they're sad about your death and think it is bad based on whether or not you said things they disagree with. It's not hard. Just say it's bad and move on.
There seems to be a sense of we're really sorry, but. Right, don't go anywhere. Coming up on The Late Show Live, a story I know a lot of you will not want to miss.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse and.
Social media accounts being banned by the Biden administration, well, they are set to be brought back. We're going to talk to our very own Neil Oliver. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
I want to know from you, which iconic British or American actress would you like to play Voldemort? But Voldemort is a male character normally, isn't he?
Yeah, Ralph Fiennes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's coming up shortly. But first, in a win for free speech, Google's parent company, Alphabet, has vowed to reinstate YouTube channels, accounts which were permanently banned for political speech during the Biden administration. So users, including current FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, now White House counterterrorism chief Sebastian Gorka, we spoke to him earlier of course, and podcast host Steve Bannon, were all flagged for repeated violations of COVID-19 and elections integrity policies. So let's talk now to GB News legend Neil Oliver. Neil, Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Now, you know, stranger to controversy. You never deliberately went out to court controversy, but it seems you just inadvertently got wrapped up in it for, I don't know, telling the truth. But when you hear this about the Alphabet company that owns Google being told by an American politician here, by a Republican, no more. You've got to let these people have their channels back. What do you make of it?
Good to see you, Bev. Hope America's treating you kindly. I'm sceptical about it, to be honest. That, you know, it's all well and good to be saying now that yes, we were being pressured into controlling information about COVID, controlling information around allegations of election irregularity. But the fact remains that just because accounts are being reinstated, you know, freedom of speech isn't freedom of reach, and the problems with YouTube and other platforms remain, which are that even if you're on there, you know, even if you can get an account up and running on there, the pressure that's applied by the bots, by the algorithms, means that there's no guarantee that you can get your message out there. This is, you know, long past its sell-by date. I would say this coming forward and admitting that the narrative was being controlled because of government pressure that was being applied. But I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing it in relation to what happened with the Trump administration leaning on Disney and ABC to pull the Jimmy Kimmel show. You know, the battle to control the narrative is one of the great wars of the world in which we live at the moment, and that battle will go on, and the powerful will use all of their armaments on that battlefield to seize and maintain control of the narrative. So, you know, what's happening, I suppose, with YouTube, it's good that cancelled accounts are going to be uncancelled, but, you know, is it enough to defend freedom of speech? I would say absolutely not.
And Neil, as I'm having a few issues with your sound, but your own YouTube channel has never been cancelled, has it? But you just have certain videos taken down. And what kind of logic were you given by YouTube at the time? Like, are they clear about what you might have contravened?
It's Kafkaesque. It was the same on GB News when I was doing, you know, weekly monologues and bringing on guests to hopefully give alternative points of view about COVID, about the jabs and various other issues besides. And there was always this fear on the part of the content producers that YouTube would censor, that YouTube would take things down. Always this idea that if you got 3 strikes against you, you were out. And it was positively Kafkaesque on my own channel, on my own use of the platform. You would get a strike against a video, you would get something demonetized, or you would have content taken down. And when we approach YouTube and say, you know, words to the effect of, in the interests of being responsible creators, what was wrong with this content? Where did we go wrong? What was the line? What was the allegation? What was the misinformation? And the invariable reply that you would get back one way or another from YouTube was, well, why don't you just go and have another look at your own content and see if you can't work out for yourself just what you did wrong. So you were being in that Kafkaesque form. You found yourself convicted of a crime, but your accuser wouldn't tell you what crime you had committed. And that goes on to this day. I mean, that irritating blue barrier that appeared under anything that you put up about COVID, insisting that after all there was an official narrative and really that's the thing you should be listening to.
Yeah. And also completely infantilising Neil Oliver. Always so good to see you, and I know our viewers would be delighted to see you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me bring in political commentator Stephen Kent. You're a big fan of Neil Oliver, aren't you, Stephen?
Absolutely. Neil Oliver's a hero. You know, I was a host in 2021 for an international news network, and they put me on YouTube for my YouTube program. And guess how much trouble I had having any honest conversations about COVID and the pandemic and speech during this country after the BLM riots.
Yeah.
We were given stand-down orders from YouTube, constant warnings, and I even had on U.S. lawmakers to discuss what was going on with the rush to a vaccine and dealing with the lockdown. And it was not censorship from news networks I ran into. it was YouTube.
Yeah. Mali, as a Democrat, that all happened under Biden. Biden went on steroids with his censorship during the pandemic. Do you look back now and think it was acceptable?
I think that we could have combated misinformation or things that were perceived as misinformation at the time with less draconian steps. So I do think that was not handled right. But I do think...
Although fascinatingly, it was actually the White House that were dishing out the misinformation we now know.
Well, let's put a pin in that, because I don't think they were dishing out misinformation completely. I think there was questions about the science. But I will say, I do think we're in kind of a space where politically, it seems like whatever party it's most advantageous to suddenly becomes a fan of cancel culture. Democrats seem to be a fan of cancel culture during COVID, and now we have Republicans trying to get people fired for not mourning correctly,
you had
or trying to get
and podcasters kicked off the internet,
and we had the
and demonetized their lifestyles, and you're talking about cancel culture.
Well, we also have the Communications Commission, Brendan Carr, threatening to remove ABC's license if they didn't do as he wished and get rid of Jimmy Kimmel.
Okay, right, more on that in the next section. Still to come this evening, though.
These are the two things I got from the United Nations: a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
We're going to take you through a series of hilarious UN failures from earlier today. Tech failures, not just ours. If it can happen to the Trump, that's okay. First, though, here's your weather.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 1 a.m. in the UK. It's just 8 p.m. here in Washington, DC. I'm Bev Turner and this is The Late Show Live. On The Late Show Live tonight.
I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that.
Trump declaring war on the UK, metaphorically of course. First there was the US president's claim that Sadiq Khan wants Sharia law in London, and then there was this.
Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately.
Suicidal energy ideas, immigration and net zero are destroying the UK, he says. That was the clear message today from the American president at the UN conference in front of world leaders reacting to all of that.
If you believe in humanity, if you want to save those children, those young women, every nation of the world should stand up and secure their borders.
Tonight, I spoke exclusively to Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Terrorism Expert Seb Gorka. He is smashing the gangs here in America, unlike Sir Keir Starmer. Meanwhile, back in the...
Don't pay any attention whatsoever to what Donald Trump says about medicine.
Labour has hit back at the American president on paracetamol causing autism claims. That cosy state visit last week is starting to feel like a very distant memory. Meanwhile,
where gun laws are rolled back, so schools have to teach our children what to do in case of a mass shooting. Trump's America, don't let it become Farage's...
Davey reckons Farage's Britain will lead to school shootings like those in America. I'll be explaining to my guests who the leader of the Liberal Democrats is this evening.
How are you? Guess what? I'm waiting.
That is French President Emmanuel Macron on the phone, we believe, to President Donald Trump. Find out why he's stuck behind that barrier. I'm Bev Turner, this is The Late Show Live, and your night's just getting started. Let's go back to our top story this evening after Donald Trump's excoriating speech at the UN.
When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did. They repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
I could just spend hours watching the faces of those UN delegates in that crowd. It was beautiful. Let's go live to international journalist and broadcaster Hadley Gamble, who was there at the UN conference in New York today. Hi, Hadley. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, what was the mood like in the room when Donald Trump went off script and just slammed down some home truths on that crowd?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, he didn't say anything that he hasn't really said before. But again, this is in front of an audience that were not particularly well inclined to listen, were they? I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't the first time that he's gone after the United Nations. He started those remarks by essentially saying, you know, you failed in every respect, and I'm here to tell you so. This is not just the fact that the escalator didn't work when he was trying to actually get to the floor, but also that his teleprompter didn't work when he needed to start his speech. You know, part of this narrative that the president has been, you know, saying for years now, not just in the first administration, of course, but now in this second, is that this is a body that, frankly, is completely and utterly ineffective. He told them, your countries are going to hell. He told them the immigration crisis, the migrant crisis that the West has essentially perpetrated on its own people is putting their countries at risk. And one of the things that he, you know, didn't hold back on, as you say, was going after the United Kingdom in particular, particularly the mayor of London.
The United Nations has these 17 sustainability goals. Okay, so this has been building since 2015, leading to 2030. The idea is all of the people in that room are in agreement on how to eradicate poverty, how to save the planet, and it all sounds so marvellous on paper. The reality is that Donald Trump is not playing that game, and he's saying, well, yeah, all very well, I might want to eradicate poverty, but I want to put America first. What kind of man can stand up in a room like that of people who he knows fundamentally disagree with him on all the reasons that they have travelled around the world to be there, and then he tells them they're all wrong? I can't work out if he's insane or he's just the bravest man in the world.
Well, I think he's certainly a man who has conviction, who believes in what he says. And again, he has called, the Green Lobby the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world. And even his Secretary of Interior just a couple of weeks ago, Doug Burgum, essentially saying to me that the Green Lobby is financed by the Russians, and he has evidence of that. At the end of the day, this is an administration that has put not just energy independence, but energy dominance first. Today, the United States is the swing producer, if you will, when it comes to oil and gas in the world. No longer Saudi Arabia, no longer OPEC. We're talking about the United States. And when he made that state visit just a few days ago to the United Kingdom, one of the things that he said multiple times was, this is a country that has amazing resources in the North Sea. You really, really need to tap those resources. When I interviewed Keir Starmer a couple of years ago before he became Prime Minister, it was one of the big questions at the World Economic Forum. What was the United Kingdom going to do to bring those electricity prices down? One of the things that Keir had said was that, he wants to make sure that they have, a leg up in this AI race. And again, the president pointing out just a few days ago that was an impossibility if the United Kingdom didn't find some way to start utilizing its energy resources. And of course, one of the big deals that he brought with him was the idea of small modular reactors, in terms of making sure that the United Kingdom would be able to, fuel, if you will, an AI revolution, a new nuclear age. But guess what? That takes a few years to get on the road. And until that point, he's urging the Prime Minister again and again to, scrap these energy policies that make absolutely no sense, and get on with the job, which is to provide the country with some means to have an industrial base. But it seems as if, as usual, the United Kingdom seem to be listening.
The level of enthusiasm is very good.
So just lastly then, Hadley, with you having been there, did he change the minds, do you think, of anybody in that room? Do you think they sat there and thought, oh, maybe he's got a point on net zero, maybe I will go home and change our international or a national policy?
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because if you are sitting in Western capitals outside the United States, certainly in Europe, politicians have been buying in to this narrative of climate change and green energy and, what the president calls, the windmills and the solar panels for so long now. It would be a bit difficult for them now to turn tail back to their population to say, guess what, guys, we've lied. We haven't been telling you the truth, and that stuff doesn't actually work. And if we're going to figure out how to rebuild our economies without U.S. assistance, we're going to have to do this immediately and bring back things that nobody wants to hear anything about. And we're talking, of course, about nuclear, about coal and other things. Whether or not he changed any minds or hearts, probably not, but he certainly spoke to a growing number of people, not just, of course, in the United States, the people who elected him, but globally, who are worried about the future of their economies and are starting to recognize that whatever they have been sold by these Western politicians is a big fat lie.
Hadley Gamble, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. Join me again, international journalist and broadcaster who was there in New York City today at that UN conference. Now let's also get the take of former State Representative Raj Goyal, who is in New York. Raj, good evening. Thank you as well. Thank you so much for joining me. So what was your impression of that performance from Donald Trump there? Goes off cue, talks from the heart. It's made headlines on every single newspaper all around the world, and it's almost as though different newspapers have taken different elements of the speech, whether that is Russia, the net zero or immigration. What did you make of it, Raj?
But let me thank you for having me, first of all, but let me pick up where your last guest left off with the big fat lie of Western governments. It starts with Donald Trump. I mean, the speech was an absolute, I understand why you're trying to give him props and maybe say that he gets some bravery points. I don't think you get any bravery points for standing up and just lying through your teeth. So let's go through a few things. Before he got sworn in here in America, he campaigned an election and he made a promise over and over and over that he would solve 2 wars. One, in fact, he said he'd do before he was sworn in. Has Gaza and Ukraine any better off under Donald Trump? I think not. He also said that he made a bald-faced lie about your mayor in London, about Sharia law, which is obviously poppycock. And then, moreover, he made this unbelievable whopper about China not using their wind farms. I mean, it's a very scary situation where the President of the United States doesn't know fundamental facts about the energy load of the globe. China is absolutely exploding on renewable energy and, yes, coal, but they are building more wind farms by the week than we are by the year here in America. So Donald Trump's speech, I mean, I didn't hear a lot of substance in your previous conversation. It was just a bunch of, I guess bravado for the fact that I guess it was the style points that you liked. But this is actually a very dangerous precedent where you have the President of the United States, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. And so the bald-faced lie, I think, happened with Donald Trump standing up there. If he wants to criticize the UN, great. There's nothing wrong with that. There is something wrong with just totally manipulating facts and, frankly, just not following through any of the promises you said you do to the American people. We elected him president, and what he said to us, our electorate, was that he would solve these two wars. Is the world safer under Donald Trump? I think not.
He has solved a lot of global conflicts, though. I mean, he has also said that he sees it as well, he has. I mean, there are conflicts which are obviously Israel and Palestine and Russia and Ukraine. But using tariffs as leverage.
I don't know what facts you're referring to. I know he claims that he solved the skirmish in India and Pakistan. India doesn't think so. He's actually made the subcontinent in the South Asian, in South Asia more dangerous. Things have never been worse. A 30-year relationship between India and the United States is in tatters. That's obviously got a lot of impact in the UK, given the diasporic element there. The Ukraine and Gaza, he told us over and over and over. Please pull the tape and say how many times did Donald Trump claim he would solve Ukraine before he was sworn in and that he would solve Gaza. Both of those situations, even today, after he gave that ridiculous, ludicrous speech, he's now backtracked and said now he's more with Zelensky than Putin. I mean, it is like a yo-yo on steroids trying to track the foreign policy of this guy. And yet, I understand if you're a big supporter and you're just a fawning media, you'll say, oh, I like the style. If you look at any substance, which is why the American people are falling out of favor with Donald Trump, it doesn't back any of these claims.
It isn't actually about being the fawning media at all. I think what Seb Gorka said earlier, that he sees that room today as being self-hating globalists. And what they don't like is that Donald Trump stands there and talks about wanting to do what is right for his country, first and foremost. And that is what a lot of people in that room has a problem with.
Bev, this isn't Fashion Week in New York. We're not talking about style. I mean, what is this, like a recess fight? Self-hating globalists. Fine. Let's even stipulate to that. What does that have to do with the fact that people are dying? The Doge process killed more people than any money it saved. I was in India in April. Now all of these incredible people who my parents came to America in 1970 because they wanted to build a better life. They wanted to study here. They were incredible for America. Now people don't even come here because they're scared of what's going to happen to legal immigrants. Remember, Donald Trump waged a campaign against illegal immigration. He's now waging war on legal migration and immigration, and it's having deleterious effects for America around the world. The world isn't safer. The economy isn't better off. So again, you can sit here and talk about I don't even know what these assertions are. They bear no fact, and they bear no relation to the lived reality of trying to improve people's lives, which I thought was the purpose of the Trump presidency and should be the mission of every elected official.
Okay, great to talk to you, Raj. Former State Representative Raj Goyal there, not holding back on his criticism of Donald Trump. Let me bring you in, Stephen, as a Republican. What did you make of Raj's assessment there of Donald Trump?
Well, I think one of the main areas that I'm zeroing in on is Donald Trump's swivel on foreign policy, how he talks a big game, he's going to end all these wars magically, and then these things don't happen. But one of the things that he then does is he changes tactics. He's not very ideological when it comes to these issues. Just today, we have in the papers here that you gave me that he is now supporting Ukraine and talking about how they could win with NATO support. he doesn't like to lose, and so he's changing direction. And that's generally what I want from a president on foreign policy, being nimble.
You see, I think when it comes to, I know that is such a criticism that it's so easy to level at Donald Trump, that he said he was going to solve these two major conflicts and he hasn't been able to do so. But he would be the first to accept that he hasn't been able to do so. I've heard him say on multiple occasions that this is so much more intractable than he thought it was going to be. So what do we want him to do? It's like when I hear people on the left saying that, you know, he should have solved these wars, it's almost like they wanted him to escalate them. He seems like he's trying all sorts of diplomatic means behind the scenes, and certainly using tariffs has done a job, particularly with India and Pakistan, and making sure that that didn't escalate. So what do people want him to do?
Well, I think a lot of Americans are simply judging him on his own promises and words. We didn't come up with the standard that we were going to solve this on day one. That was his promise. And if you look pretty much at any objective measure of Trump's foreign policy, it is a complete failure. On his stated goal of ending those two wars, both wars are worse off. There is no question about that. The situation in Israel and in Gaza is worse. The situation in Ukraine and Russia is worse. On a question of international standing, there's been polling looking at what countries and how countries view the United States. Pretty much unanimously, countries have a lesser opinion of the United States than they did under the Biden administration.
But isn't that, surely that has got to be partly because the media representation of Donald Trump is extraordinarily poor, like negative about him, in whichever country you go to.
There's also, it's not just the fact that, you know, he has this tough language. He is also implementing a trade agenda that he says is America first. But what it is actually doing is it's leading to higher costs for Europeans, sure, but it's hurting Americans. Farmers across our country are seeing their livelihoods get hurt by Trump's tariffs because China has stopped buying soybeans from the United States. They are being devastated economically, diplomatically, and even on corruption.
I think that's kind of where you can see that Donald Trump represents so much chaos on the international stage. People don't know where he stands on an issue because he swivels and changes direction so often. I don't like the trade war. The tariffs are not working for the American people, and he needs to stop it. It's a huge wet blanket.
But he would say that they are generating billions of pounds of revenue.
I don't care what he would say. I want it to be true.
And it isn't true, you don't think?
No, well, you can say that money is coming in, but if that is hampering people's spending and reducing the amount that consumers feel confident going to the store with, that's not a trade-off that I believe in. The stock market should be soaring right now, and it isn't. And it's because nobody can predict what the future holds. And from foreign policy to tariffs and the economy, that's what he represents. Too much change.
I think Stephen and I have some agreement here. Yes, I think revenues are coming in because the simple fact is that tariffs are a tax on the American consumer. It is estimated by the Yale Budget Lab that this is going to cost American households about $1,400 to $2,000 a year. That is a tax on American families. It's a regressive tax because middle-class families spend more of their income on household budgets and staples than rich folks do. And he is claiming that that's going to help pay for his big, beautiful bill. His big, beautiful bill, which cut taxes for millionaires and billionaires and paid for it by taking health care away from 15 million Americans and cutting food assistance to our poorest Americans.
Let's have a look at what people are saying back at home. Biden was a joke, says Zaphod. Everyone around the world could see that. Lee, he said, where is this man getting his information from? I think a lot more of Donald Trump, and this is, I never used to like Trump, but I do now. When he says this man, I think he means you, Mally.
I gathered.
It's okay. We'll all have a little hug at the end of it because they're criticising all of them.
Winston Marshall, huh? Yeah, well, I mean, Winston Marshall, if he pointed that out, that everything they predicted was 100% wrong. You know, the world is not going to collapse in on itself from tariffs. Tariffs are a tool that the United States has neglected to use for almost a quarter century at this point. And changing tactics, that's something you can do, but it is suppressing growth so much in the United States. We don't need to be doing it, but we should pull it out when the United Kingdom does insane stuff like their Online Safety Act, where they were going to be surveilling their citizens and tourists from abroad coming into the country. And and saying, if you want to do that to our people, we're going to hit you with tariffs and make them back off. That's why they're good and can be useful.
See what George has said at home. Good evening, George. Thank you for dropping in with me. At least President Trump is trying, says George, not like other countries around the world are not frightened to do anything. They're frightened to do anything. They all look to President Trump and then they cane him for not stopping the wars. But at least President Trump is trying. That's what the impression that I always get from him. I genuinely think it's not like he doesn't want to end these wars, and he certainly hasn't come in. Was the expectation from you on the left, particularly Manny, that when Donald Trump came into the White House he would be a warmonger rather than a war stopper?
That's a hard question because he leans in every different direction on this. Sometimes he sounds like a dove, and then sometimes he sounds incredibly militaristic. I do think it is highly unlikely that he would put troops in a foreign country, just because I think he does have an objection to that. I think it's more likely he would use drones or things like we're seeing with him bombing the boats, the drug boats.
And he might even do that. I mean, if he actually takes us in a different direction on Ukraine and Russia, he might just switch positions to make Putin understand, I am not playing around when I tell you that I want a peace deal. And then you might see him switch right back to the position of, we're going to have peace and Ukraine is going to lose land.
Yeah.
But the thing that Donald Trump does that Biden just could not is he is willing to put his money and American force where his mouth is. And that's what actually moves things on the international scale in favor of America. Your guest had mentioned that he doesn't know what it means to be a self-effacing, self-hating globalist. People don't like America right now because we don't apologize. We don't apologize for ourselves like Biden and Obama were famous for doing. And if people don't like us, who cares?
Well, talking about putting your money and your resources where your mouth is, President Biden led and got past the Ukrainian supplements to make sure their war effort was funded. He visited Ukraine during wartime. He also, with a lot of political attacks coming from his left, supported Israel in its fight against Hamas. So I think President Biden showed that he stood with our allies in both those incidences.
I think he had some business interest in Ukraine as well, didn't he? Jan says, I'm enjoying the show, Bev. It's great to get the different perspectives stateside. I'm enjoying it too, Jan. I'm glad you told me that. I hope you two are enjoying it.
It's a nice comment.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, marvellous.
Journey. We love it.
And yeah, well, we'll come back to those in just a little while. Some of them I can't read out. Right, let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. He's looking now to work out what we couldn't read out. Now, which iconic British or American actress would you like to play Voldemort in Harry Potter in the next movie? Voldemort is a baddie, isn't it? I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, I can't lie.
This is your modern myth. You're supposed to know this.
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I love J.K. Rowling. Not a big fan of the books. That's all coming up shortly. But last night, the Trump administration linked a common painkiller taken during pregnancy to higher rates of autism in children.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of acetaminophen, is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
So that announcement sparked a row today, hasn't it, amongst doctors and so-called specialists. It just couldn't race quick enough to say that this must be wrong. So let's talk to pharmacist Thorin Govid, a friend of the channel and a friend of mine from Good Morning, from what was it called? Britain's Newsroom, what I used to host. Thorin, great to see you, Thorin. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Lovely to see you thriving in the US, Bev, and I'm keen to talk to you about this because, as you know, there's very few pain relief options available to women when they are pregnant. So when the President of the United States comes out with something like this all, does spark concern from patients and women across the globe. But it's interesting to see what the FDA have actually come out with, because they are still continuing to say that it remains reasonable for pregnant women to use acetaminophen. We saw Donald Trump was having difficulty there in certain scenarios, but that of course contrasts with the position in the UK, of course.
What was frustrating for me, Thorin, as somebody that absolutely believes in informed consent when it comes to any medical intervention, what I took from the press conference last night was the notion that patients should just understand the risks and the benefits, and that includes pregnant women who might have a temperature, or even a child that might have a temperature. And I thought that that message was a little bit lost, and it certainly has been lost in the aftermath of that and all of the furore about people just saying Trump is wrong, Trump is wrong. Do you admire at least this administration's willingness and their enthusiasm to find a cause for autism? Because the explosion in cases in the last 2 decades cannot be denied, and Robert Kennedy has pushed back on what he says is a canard about the fact that testing is more common now, and yes, of course it is, but you can't deny, any teacher will tell you that there are more children in a classroom now that suffer from autistic traits than there have ever been before. Surely you applaud their desire to look for a reason.
I mean, let's be clear about this. There's no proven link between women taking paracetamol and a child developing autism. And the MHRA in England are very clear. We know that if you don't treat that pain or fever, that can also pose risks to unborn children. When you're having or considering taking a drug, you should always be thinking about the risks and benefits. But I just think this was not done in the best way. And I think my feeling is it sparked a lot of concern and fear. And I don't think we should be getting announcements from the President's office. I think it should be very much from the evidence-based regulators. And, you know, in the UK, we've got to listen to what the MHRA are saying here on this.
But the work that they've done, that Jay Bhattacharya and Bobby Kennedy has done, is purely evidence-based. That's what they were at pains to say, that they've done a deep dive into the meta-analysis of anything that they've looked into that could be causing autism. And they didn't come out and say, oh, we're going to sell you this very expensive drug to cure it. They have said there is a suggestion that there is a drug that will help people with autistic symptoms, a cheap drug. And surely, Thorin, the world has to open its mind to the possibility that they might be right.
I think we're always looking at drugs that we have and what they can also be used for. Of course, you know, Viagra, when that was first made available, was never considered for what we use it for now. So we're always looking into drugs, but we're also looking at the safety profiles of drugs as well. So the MHRA here in England are continuously monitoring the safety of all medicines, including those used through pregnancy. And they are monitoring, they are looking at those analysis as well. But if we look at that drug that we were just talking about there, which is called leucovorin, that's currently used to treat cancer and anemia patients. But they're certainly not saying it's a cure for autism.
I think the other things that I took from these initial findings, and they have devoted, they've now committed another $50 million to looking into this. And I love the idea that somebody cares about children's health in this way, because we certainly haven't seen it in the UK of any recent time, was the idea that we should take aluminium and mercury should be removed from vaccines because of the harm that they would cause, and that vaccines should be spaced out in individual doses rather than giving lots of doses in one go to a baby, which just for me, that defies all my maternal instincts that you would give your child dozens of vaccines all on one day. And they vow to continue to study the connection between vaccines and autism and other drugs and autism. I just find it astonishing when Wes Streeting comes out as our health secretary the morning after and just says this is wrong, as though he has evidence. That I imagine he hasn't even read their report by the time he went on Breakfast Telly this morning.
I think the focus for me is always on how are the regulators continuing to monitor drugs, and even with the weight loss drugs, we've heard so much about them, but they are being continually monitored. We are asked as healthcare professionals and even patients to report side effects of any medication. And in the UK, autism is supported by a range of person-centred interventions. It's not treated like an illness to be cured. Obviously, any Any research that we can do on conditions is important, but I am really focused on making sure that for patients out there that they are not confused, that patients are very clear that pregnant women should continue to follow NHS guidance on this and speak to their healthcare professional if they've got any questions about anything to do with pregnancy and medication in particular.
But the trouble is, if people go into the doctors and the doctors hate Donald Trump and they say, I'm pregnant, should I take paracetamol? The doctors are going to say, yeah, take paracetamol, don't listen to that Donald Trump. I mean, social media is literally awash with people, pregnant women today on TikTok. I mean, it blows my mind. Necking Tylenol just to say, you take this, Donald Trump, as they put Tylenol down their gullet with their pregnant bum. And I just think, what's wrong with those women? They completely lost their mind. They are that politically enraged by Donald Trump that they would risk the health of their baby rather than listen to people who have their best interests at heart.
I mean, I definitely don't recommend taking medication that you don't need. I always think we have to consider a sort of on the case-by-case basis. If you have any concerns about medication that you take, or if the medication that you take is not adequate, then we may need to make sure that people are getting healthcare advice. But I certainly don't start any medical intervention or consultation thinking I hate Donald Trump or I hate this government. I always focus on the patient in front of me.
Yeah, and do you know what a big problem is, Thorin? Trust has gone. Trust has gone between the patients and the medical authorities. We know too much, frankly, since 2021 about how many people are bought and paid for, but I'm sure you're not one of them. Pharmacist Thorin Govid, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you, as always. Now, in a statement, the maker of Tylenol, Kenvue, have said the science clearly shows that taking paracetamol does not cause autism. We strongly disagree with any suggestion otherwise and are deeply concerned with the health risk this poses for expectant mothers. Now, should we talk about this with my panel? I would like to. Stephen, what this has caused such a chaotic situation here in the US and across the world with Donald Trump making this announcement yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want people confused about very simple household medicines that they might take for something as simple as a fever. And I completely identify with your desire for curiosity. We have got to figure out what is going on with autism, and we have to push back against the desire to just dismiss anything that comes out of this administration. However, I am very skeptical of any research that RFK and his team produced that leans on the word associated with, linked, potentially hazardous, could. All of their language around this still suggests they're looking at correlation, not causation, and they have a suspect.
But that's okay.
Well, it's not.
Well,
it's not okay. This is actually what they did to run this big campaign against aspartame artificial sweeteners and red food dyes in this country, because they are associated with cancer caused in rats and not human beings. And so your headline of the study says this chemical aspartame is associated with cancer in mice, but they can't actually show anything that it does to humans. And this same kind of thinking and language is being applied in this autism study. I'm skeptical.
Well, Donald Trump was pushed on that, wasn't he? And he said, you know, they said that they want to wait for 3 months before we talk about this. But he said, that's too long. And I agree with him, because if you are a pregnant woman and you are taking paracetamol, and if there is any signal that it might cause fetal abnormalities, your baby might in some way be affected, I want to know and then make my own decision. And that's surely all that he was defending by saying there is this link. Unfortunately, the media took it and blew it into something it wasn't.
Well, let me say, I think Stephen and I agree on a lot here, and I hope they don't do anything to my aspartame and my Diet Coke, because I wouldn't be able to function.
Yeah, but at least you know now that it's going to give you cancer, and then you can make a choice.
Anxiety
about cancer.
Allegedly. Yeah, but how else do we do trials if not on animals?
Well,
we have to do them on animals.
Here's the issue I have with RFK Jr.'s approach, because there's some low-hanging fruit on the MAHA agenda that I think we can all get behind.
Which is the Make America Healthy Again.
Make America Healthy Again, which is exercise and eating healthier. That is low-hanging fruit. And also, I think we all want to find solutions to autism. But here's the thing. Kennedy starts with an answer and tries to find evidence that leads to his preferred answer.
But it was vaccines. His preferred answer was vaccines, and that's why.
Moved from it.
That's why
they've not looked into that
but that's
yet.
why I'm looking at this and going, I mean, maybe there's something here, because we know that RFK wanted this to be childhood vaccines, and then he landed on Tylenol?
Well, the three top CDC officials resigned because Kennedy fired the head of the CDC, which was a political appointee that Trump and RFK Jr. wanted and appointed, and they resigned because she was fired, and she was fired because she told RFK that she wasn't just going to rubber stamp his conclusions, that she wasn't just going to say, look, I'm going to do whatever you want to do.
Pretty sure he asked her, are you a liar? And she said yes.
No.
under testimony by Kennedy Jr. But I still agree with you. Like the CDC, FDA.
She said, if you can't trust me, you should fire me.
The CDC and FDA are out of control. I mean, these organizations need to actually be orderly, bring in experts that have a solid track record, and it is being mismanaged. But we should remain curious about what's going on here with this autism study. I simply question why it only took like 7 months.
I think we should remain curious, but we also should have skepticism if we're taking medical advice from one guy who told us to inject bleach during COVID, which would be President Trump, and another who said COVID.
He was talking about hydroxychloroquine, which, let's face it, it sounds like a bleach, which was a medication which we now know did well on COVID.
He did not. He wasn't. He actually said we should inject bleach. He wasn't just talking about.
As we've seen,
and then he also
about medical information does not necessarily play to his
RFK Jr., who said COVID was genetically created in a lab, not to target Jewish people. Those are the folks we are taking medical advice. And anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists.
But you're talking about distrust in our institutions that you say are so important. Again, I want to point back to, I think we want the CDC and the FDA to work for the American people. But we are now in a position where RFK puts out a report that's saying we need to actually look into this a little bit closer. And we're chugging Tylenol on TikTok to spite the president? That's insane.
He didn't say that Trump, in the press conference, did not say we need to look further into this. He said this was the answer.
And
he said reducing Tylenol. And what's going to be really funny is in 3 months he's going to claim he's solved the autism problem in America, and there's still going to be people with autism, but he doesn't really care about the facts.
To be clear, he prefaced, when he stood up and spoke, he prefaced it by saying, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just going to talk about common sense. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts on this, and then I will hand over to the doctors.
Yeah.
And when
he's also not 6'2" and 230 pounds.
But when he was saying about the Tylenol in pregnancy, I think his phrase, well, he was unequivocal. He was just like, just don't take it. Just tough out the pain. Just don't take it. And at that point, I was like, we need Bobby Kennedy to come in here because he is the person who has been the most.
But let's look at
he's been the most diligent and the most rigorous, though, I would say, on the research. He is the man who's been outcast for 10, 20 years and written off as a conspiracy theorist, even when he was a lawyer talking about eco issues.
He's an environmental lawyer. He's not a doctor.
He was an environmental. You don't need to be a doctor to look at numbers.
Who makes his money
you do not need to be a doctor to look at numbers.
Also, too, let's look at the Republicans who are actually doctors, which is Chairman Cassidy of the Health Committee, and he has expressed grave concern about RFK Jr.'s leadership at the agency and his firing.
Well, let's see. Right, still to come on Late Show Live tonight.
As you know, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No, that's not what I said.
Failed 2024 presidential candidate Kamala Harris has got a book out, and she's been doing the promotional rounds, but she's faced criticism for admitting that she didn't have a gay man as her running mate. We'll talk about why she said that. But before that, French President Emmanuel Macron was forced to walk through the streets of New York this morning to get to the UN General Assembly. Why? Because President Trump's motorcade had closed all the roads. And Macron even called President Trump on his personal number to have a chat about it. Here it is.
I'm sorry, I'm the president. I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now. There's a border gate coming right now. I'm sorry. If you don't see it, let me cross. How are you? Guess what? I'm waiting in the street because everything is frozen for you. Are we ready for a while?
I can't lie. I love watching that. I'm not a massive fan of Macron. I just think Donald Trump, he will have enjoyed that, wouldn't he, Stephen?
Oh, quite a bit. Almost as much as Keir Starmer picking up his papers when he dropped them the other day.
Absolutely. Right, let's have a look at what else is making the headlines tonight. Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey says that Britain will face threat of US-style mass shootings if Nigel Farage were to be Prime Minister.
That is Trump's America. Don't let it become Farage's Britain. Where gun laws are rolled back, so schools have to teach our children what to do in case of a mass shooting. Trump's America. Don't let it become Farage's Britain. Where social media barons are free to poison young minds with impunity. Trump's America. Don't let it become Farage's Britain.
Now, I feel like my first question to Stephen Kent and Democrat strategist Malbert Smith should be, do you know who that guy is? Malbert?
No.
No.
I'm afraid not. Is he going to play Voldemort?
No, he's not going to play Voldemort. Okay, so he's the leader of the Liberal Democrats, which is kind of well, it's the third party in our country. So we have Labour in power, Conservatives are the opposition, but then we have the Liberal Democrats, and then we have Reform with some seats. So the Green Party are in there somewhere as well, but nobody really cares about that. But that they are sort of centre-left.
Okay.
I think they're getting, I would say as an observer, they seem to be moving further and further to the left, but they did all right in the last general election.
Okay.
They got more votes than we would expect them to. I keep wanting them to talk about freedom and the individual. They are meant to be a Liberal Party. They don't. They do the polar opposite. So when he's talking there, Ed Davey, and he's whipping up this fear about if Nigel Farage is Prime Minister, we're going to have gun laws relaxed. That is just the left doing what they constantly accuse the right of, which is whipping up division and hate, isn't it?
Nigel Farage, this is not on the top of his list of issues. You know, before you even start talking about expanding gun rights or returning them to people in Britain, you're going to have a lot of serious cultural conversations about whether or not that's a right at all, the right to self-defense. If I were anyone involved in the UK politics, I'd be focused on immigration, because you cannot rush to start arming your population when you don't know who is in it. I would be very concerned about Second Amendment rights if you were in London when you don't know who half the people are. You got to tackle that issue first. This is fear-mongering. You know, it's not going to happen.
Mally, were your thoughts on Nigel Farage? I'm sure if you're not sure who Ed Davey is, you probably know who he is. He's a much bigger star here in America.
Well, let me say on the comments about the UK becoming more like the US when it comes to shootings, good news, bad news. The good news for the UK is a lot would have to go wrong for it to get to the level of US shootings. And I think it's quite striking that no matter the target, no matter the amount of people dead, the United States shows no capacity to ever tackle gun laws and make sure that we are keeping Americans safe. From senior citizens to our very youngest, Americans are being killed because crazy folks have easy access to guns across this country. And unfortunately, we're not going to see any action on that.
That will never change, will it? I mean, obviously...
Well, it can change, because this is the only modern and industrialized country in the world that has these gun deaths.
And when Mally's talking about 30...
Europe does not have the gun deaths that the US does. So yes, it can change. It's called creating new gun laws that make sure that there's still a Second Amendment right.
You're going to need a constitutional amendment. There is no new gun law that's going to get you what you want. And you keep talking about crazy people. The issue is criminals with handguns, and then after that it's suicides. And we both know this to be true. The specter of the mass shooter is this percentage of the problem. We've got to deal with the handguns and crime.
Well, Stephen, people who are shot with handguns and crime and also kill themselves in suicide are still dead people by guns.
Yeah, but you still want to raise the specter of American mass shooters and talk about crazy people, and that is
because we're the only country that has
scariest
this problem
in American public life. I'm with you on that, but this is an issue of downtown urban violence and suicides. And when you think about the UK and giving them guns as well, you might have incredibly adverse effects when it comes to gun violence and suicidality if you introduce guns into that. We have to figure out what is going on in our countries that is making people act this way.
Here's the thing. Other countries have people who are crazy. other countries have people who are unwell, they don't have the guns to either kill themselves or kill others.
Yeah. I don't know how
I'm not going to stand on the idea that the U.S. is the only country that has crazy people.
Oh, I can confirm that it definitely isn't. Right, let's have a look at some of the newspaper front pages from the UK. The Daily Telegraph is going with Trump says that the West is going to hell over migration. And of course, he was specifically talking about migration from developing countries, from the Arab world, moving over into Europe. The Daily Express, they're leading on the headline that 500,000 OAPs will lose their winter pay. This is Rachel Reeves eyeing up tax changes in the budget that will affect those who've contributed to the system for an entire lifetime. The Daily Mirror is leading with deranged, the world's most powerful man baby. Trump rants to the UN about climate, migrants, Gaza, Sadiq's Sharia London, escalators, marble floors and teleprompters. I'm just telling my panel, that is a left-wing newspaper.
Gotcha.
That might not have passed
I could tell.
Leading the Washington Post, Donald Trump says that Ukraine is poised to defeat Russia with NATO support, which is a very interesting turnaround on his position on this, and clearly it's a situation which he cannot get under his control. And leading the New York Post, turning points. Charlie Kirk's words are being distorted and weaponized against him. It's saying there, and if you take a cursory glance at social media, you will see that that is true. Let's get the take of the Spectator's Angus Colwell, who is in the GB News studio for us in London this evening. Thank you, Angus, for staying with me there. Should we talk about this story on the front page of the Express, that 500,000 OAPs to lose their winter pay? What's the detail of that one, Angus?
Well, this is the first major row of Keir Starmer's premiership, even before you had the Southport attacks. Rachel Reeves said that she was going to remove winter fuel eligibility pays. Now, this has been the issue that sort of hasn't quite gone away. There's some new analysis, obviously, from several think tanks saying that 500,000 OAPs could lose their winter pay because Rachel Reeves just can't stop fiddling with it. She hemmed herself in with Labour's manifesto by saying that she wouldn't raise national insurance, VAT or income tax. This has meant that she's going to have to play around with more of the sort of niche technical taxes, more specific taxes, but that's always going to create a sort of interest group, a defined group who can coordinate opposition. So it doesn't look to be the wisest political move.
Absolutely. And also, let's have a quick look at the Mirror front page. Deranged, the world's most powerful man baby. They haven't held back, have they? That is an extremely anti-Trump front page, talking about his speech at the at the UN conference in New York. What have they said inside?
Well, I mean, look, they may call it deranged. The Mirror is a paper on the left. I don't think you can be too surprised by that. But I was just listening to Ed Davies' comments about Donald Trump maybe inspiring Nigel Farage's Britain to loosen their gun laws and there to be school shootings. You know, Trump derangement syndrome is alive and well. The Mirror calling Trump deranged, just sort of turning it back on them. I'm not too surprised by it, but their readers will probably love it.
OK, Angus, thank you so much. Great to see you, and thank you for giving us your thoughts on those paper stories, which will no doubt be all across GB News tomorrow, today, actually. So make sure you stay with the channel all day. Let's turn to news here. Kamala Harris is on a crusade to promote her new tell-all memoir, and she's finally revealed why she snubbed Pete Buttigieg, how do you say her name?
Buttigieg.
Thank you. For VP. Take a look at this.
Hard to hear with you running as, you know, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No, that's not what I said. In 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for president of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for president of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk.
So we would have heard of Pete Buttigieg if she had nominated him to be VP. But what do you make of her? Is it her admission? Basically, what she's saying is America was not ready for a black woman and a gay man. She's right, isn't she?
She still thinks that we're in 2008 and not the world that Barack Obama helped usher into being when he became president. We are in a more progressive position, as well as the Democratic Party, than we were 10, 15 years ago. The part of her comment that I think stands out the most is when she says, to be, as a black woman, running for president. She still thinks the American people are bigoted. She does not believe that they would elect her and Pete Buttigieg. And that says everything about her worldview and the Democratic Party in general. They don't like the American voter.
What you did do, though, is vote in a very conservative president with a more conservative agenda than
we
we've
would
seen
also elect Bernie
in years.
Sanders, and I know Mally might agree with this, but like I think Bernie Sanders would be a competitive Democratic politician. I don't know if you could ever be a vice president to someone like Kamala, but that would have been more appealing. They went for Tim Walz because they're like, hey, this is what you Americans want, some doofy dad who plays football.
And you think that's patronizing? In a way, yeah.
I do.
My favorite thing is when Kamala became the nominee and they were looking for the VP candidate. Someone tweeted out Kamala looking for her VP, and it was a wine section, and it said "interesting whites," which was essentially going to be what she was looking at for VP. I don't necessarily agree with her that it would have been a deal breaker, but I do think it's a bit of a moot issue in that the VP doesn't decide who wins the election. Like, it might help on the margins in a state, but the real question is at the top of the ticket.
And also what it shows is that they were so obsessed with identity politics, they probably didn't know what they stood for anyway, because I think you're right in that the public will vote for people that they feel are authentic and that they are representing the set of values that they can relate to. I think maybe, I get your point.
By and large, Buttigieg is an incredibly articulate Democratic politician. He is right now, I think, one of the brightest stars for the future of the Democratic Party. He also would have outshone Kamala Harris in spades, in ways that J.D. Vance also kind of outshines Trump when these speaks.
Maybe that was why she didn't want him. Right, what unites our two countries better than The Boy Who Lived Under the Stairs? And now US cable network HBO is rebooting the world of Harry Potter, but they've caused a bit of a stir. They've suggested that Voldemort, the enemy, of course, of Harry Potter, could be played by a woman. Famously, the role was played by Ralph Fiennes in the movie, so who could play the Dark Lord? We have done a little bit of casting with famous actresses from across the UK. If you want to have a look at these fellas, Olivia Colman, are you familiar with Olivia Colman?
A little bit, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what Olivia Colman might look like as Voldemort. Oh, that's flattering. Judi Dench, here we go. This is Judi Dench as Voldemort. Oh honestly, this terrifying. Is deeply
that could work.
Very unflattering for all these poor women.
Do you have Rachel Maddow? Is she in there?
Meryl Streep, here we go. I mean, none of these women are going to thank us for doing this to them, are they? And finally, Tilda Swinton.
You know, your AI generator.
I hate to say this, but Tilda Swinton doesn't look very different.
I think Tilda's the winner, but the real thing HBO should do, and it could really unite the country, which is they should cast a trans woman as Voldemort. The left would be excited because it would be a trans actor. The right would be excited because the trans person would be the villain. J.K. Rowling would be excited because she famously
you would literally be trolling J.K. Rowling.
They are committing cultural vandalism left and right with classic British stories. They are talking about doing this with Aslan from C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, with Meryl Streep being a female lion. Why can we not just tell stories that are true to the books that people love?
Yeah. Thanks, Granddad.
Stephen Kent, Mally Smith, thank you so much for keeping me company this evening. It's been fantastic. Come back and see me soon.
Thanks,
thank you at home for spending your night with The Late Show Live here in Washington, D.C. I wish you a lovely evening and see you back here tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's midnight in the UK. See you then.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Any mist or fog this morning should clear away quite readily, leaving another dry day. Plenty of sunny spells. Temperatures will be around about average, but still feeling that little bit cooler where you catch the brisk breeze. Now, there could be some cloud around this morning, particularly across northern and central parts of England. This could be thick enough to produce a very light shower at times, but you should be quite unlucky if you do catch any of those, because for most, it's a dry day, a mix of cloud, plenty of sunny spells, quite breezy at times around coasts of East Anglia